Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ACF Chef's Table webinar, a place where culinary professionals gather to learn, connect, and lead. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Power Shift, the Economics of Electrified Kitchens. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. If you're already part of the ACF family, welcome back. For those unfamiliar with the American Culinary Federation, we are the premier organization for chefs and food service professionals. We offer certification, education, networking, and industry-leading resources that help chefs grow, evolve, and lead with confidence. Today's session is especially timely as we explore the transition into electrified kitchens and what that shift means to costs, efficiency, safety, and long-term performance in both commercial and institutional settings. We're thrilled to be joined by Chef Christopher A. Galarza, CEC, CCA, WCEC, a national thought leader in sustainable kitchen design and one of the most passionate voices in this movement. A bit of quick housekeeping. Say hello in the chat and tell us where you're tuning in from. Use that Q&A box at any time to drop the questions. We'll get to them as many as we can after Chef Chris is done with his presentation. I'm Christopher Tanner, Executive Director of the ACF, and I'm excited to share this important conversation with all of you today. Let's meet today's presenter. Chef Christopher Galarza is a leading advocate for sustainable kitchen design and electrification, pioneering the green industrial revolution in food service industry. As a founder of Forward Dining Solutions and co-founder of EcoChef, he helps chefs and designers create high-performing, energy-efficient, environmentally friendly kitchens. He serves as president of the ACF Pittsburgh chapter and Pittsburgh Culinary Initiative, driving sustainability and education in the culinary world. Chef Galarza is also the author of Understanding the Green Industrial Revolution, an interdisciplinary look at the hospitality industry, a key resource in the future of sustainable hospitality. At this time, I'll hand it over to Chef Galarza. Please take it over, Chef. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chef. I appreciate it. Just going to share my screen here. All right. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that. Thank you, Chef. Thank you for the stellar introduction, and thank you to the ACF for having this, again, really timely discussion. We're going to jump straight into it because we have a lot to cover, but there are certain timelines of events that I want to kind of outline for everyone. For me, I've been working in these kitchens since around 2015, 2016. But for me, this conversation didn't really start until 2019. It was the first time that a government passed an ordinance mandating electrification. Now, this being the first time in, by the way, July of 2019, it was the first time that I really realized that the governments can really have a power in this. I spent a lot of my time talking to chefs and designers, but this was a really pivotal point. From there was a lot of studies that came out, and I wanted to highlight two. The first came out in January of 2022. This is the one that was cited by Chef Russell last week, where he said that gas stoves emit around 550, emits enough emissions to equal about 550,000 cars on the road. There was a little bit of misunderstanding there where this study was looking primarily at residential stoves, and it calculated leakage rates when they were off, meaning that nationally, only residential kitchens, when they were off, were leaking emissions equal to 550,000 cars on the road each year. That's not to say when we're cooking. That's not to say commercial kitchens, which are order of magnitude times larger. I'm imagining that number to be quite astounding. But also, and this is the study that kind of kicked off what's now called Stovegate. December of 2022, there was a meta-analysis study done where they took 50 years worth of data and they compiled it together and did what's called a population attributable fraction, and where they figured out that 12.7% of children in the United States right now can attribute their asthma to gas stoves. And that's roughly 650,000 kids right now. And a 2015 study showed that Black and brown children are 8 to 10 times more likely to die from asthma than any other demographic. Now, if you look at the states that are the worst, Pennsylvania is number 5, where I'm at, Illinois, California, Massachusetts, New York, Colorado down there as well, all doing pretty bad when it comes to childhood asthma and gas stoves. Now, if you look at this map, you see that since that 2019 regulation was passed, which, by the way, it was eventually rescinded, but still 131 cities and jurisdictions right now have electrification ordinances. It's across 11 states, affecting 37 million Americans, roughly 10% of the population. It's going to save those families in those states around $39 billion in healthcare. And if you own a home in those states, a potential greenhouse gas savings of 56% reduction over 10 years. Now, this map does not look that impressive, right? It's just a few states. What's important to know is when you overlay it with this map, that's where all the gas stoves are. Because residentially speaking, only 38% of Americans cook on gas. So New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, California, what have you, they are cooking on gas. The rest of the country is electrified. That means the number one state, as a matter of fact, is North Carolina, followed by North Dakota and Tennessee. Number one state for all electric building design is not California, it's actually Florida. Number one state for renewable energy is not California, it's actually Texas. So I feel like it's a bit of myth busting here to really showcase where we are politically on this conversation. And it's important to note that it doesn't matter who's in the White House because the federal government updates their building codes once every, say, 10 years or so. These states are doing it once every 5 years, and these cities are doing it once every year or two. So they're able to get really ahead of the curve here in a way that the federal government can't. So yes, electrification is no longer an if, but just a matter of when. So that leads us to electric kitchens. And we're going to focus a lot on induction cooking because that is the one that has the most controversy behind it. Induction, well, honestly, not gas. We all knew that. It's also not coils, right? We think of this when we think of electric cooking. Grandma's coils. They're slow. They're not responsive. Although they're more efficient, it doesn't really meet the demands of what we need in our commercial spaces. Then we have the glass tops that glow red. It's oftentimes confused for induction. It's merely grandma's coils with a glass top. Again, more efficient, not necessarily better for cooking. So what is induction? Induction is a way of using electromagnetic currents to heat your food. And it's a safer way of cooking that's going to save you a lot more money in the long run. We'll touch on that. So the way it works is that you do have a coil. It's a copper coil. And you send an electrical impulse through it, and as it's going around and around that coil, it's creating what's called an eddy current. The eddy current creates an oscillating magnetic wave that lives about an inch or two above the surface, so it's perfectly safe for electronics or whatnot. And it's incredibly fast at getting energy into metal. So the way it works is this oscillating magnetic wave gets the ferrous molecules in the pan very excited. It creates molecular friction. That molecular friction heats the pan up from the inside out. So the way to think about this as a culinarian is imagine your microwave, right? You turn it on. These little invisible waves come into your food. What's happening is that it's exciting the water molecules in your food, thus creating that molecular friction that heats the food up from the inside out. Similar principles, but we're able to use this to cook a lot faster. So now that we've done that, kind of laid the groundwork, let's stop for a moment, recontextualize the argument, because a lot of folks may be thinking, my whole life is ran by gas. I can't just switch like that. But if we stop to think of what really truly is with gas, you see that our lives are primarily governed by electricity. So let's just stop and just watch this, and I'll take a drink of water. So yeah, this may be a little silly, but I think it's really important that everything around us is electrified, right? In our homes, we're looking at maybe three things that are on gas, right? Because no one cares how you heat your water, no one cares how you heat your home, no one, for some reason, everybody cares how they cook. And I understand it may be personal for a lot of people, myself included, but we're going to talk about why that shouldn't be the case. So there should be an honest conversation here between pros and cons of gas and electric. So induction cooking, very high efficient. We're talking 90+% efficient versus 35%. And the caveat here is that that's under lab conditions. The 90% stays true with induction because when you lift up the pan, for example, there is no breaking, well, there's no continuing flow of electricity. It breaks the circuit. With gas, however, is not uncommon to, have the burners on nonstop, turn around, add ingredients or plate or whatnot with the fire still going, or preheating our pans, or in between rushes, we would have a stack of saute pans constantly getting hot, and we're just working off of those. That is loss of efficiency, right? So that 35% under lab conditions in the hands of a professional like us, talking 10 or 20%, meaning for every dollar you spend on gas, only 10 or 20 cents of which is actually reaching your food, which is the thing that makes you money. And it's not just a waste there, it's actually costing you money because it, as it goes off into your space, it's heating up your space, which means your ventilation is working harder to cool down the space, right? Your air conditioning, which then your hoods take and just throw out your building. Your refrigeration is cycling on and off more often, which is again costing you more money, but also that compressor is going to go down a lot sooner. So by electrifying, you're cooling down the kitchen as well, which is saving you on electricity costs. It heats up really quickly. There's precise temperature adjustments between plus or minus a degree that you set it to. There's a reduction in idling equipment. There's no combustion, which means no carbon monoxide. We'll touch more on that. There's dramatic improvement of thermal comfort, which again, we'll touch on that. And there's also an extension of your life for your pots and pans. So no more warped saute pans that won't sit straight, no more hot and cold spots, no more carbon buildup, no more having to replace your pots and pans once every couple of years. I just went back to Chatham University where we had first built this campus, and we bought those pots and pans in 2015. It's 10 years later, they look almost exactly like they did when I first bought them. You're securing your investment, but there are some initial costs there, right? Or there are some cons. The initial cost, for example, is one. Compatible cookware is another one. People think you need special cookware. You just need to have cookware that attract the magnets. So if you're used to buying all aluminum or all copper, yeah, it's not going to work. Quite honestly, manufacturers, they want to sell one pot and pan. They don't want, here's a line for induction, a line for gas, a line for butane, a line for campfires. No, they just want one. So if you're used to using cast iron, or if you just want to see if your pots and pans are ready to go, take a magnet and stick them on the bottom. And also the electrical capacity, right? You have to upgrade your panels or whatnot. All this contributes to the cost of building a kitchen, and we'll touch more on that at the end. So what sort of solutions exist? Quite honestly, there's nothing in a gas kitchen that doesn't have an electric alternative, right? Ranges, griddles, grills, fryers, tilt skillets, broilers, steamers, you have it. It also allows us to refine our tradition. Here you have on the left an electric tandoor oven, on the right an induction wok. This particular model is a 12 kilowatt version. What people don't know oftentimes is that gas woks use about 250,000 gallons of water per year per wok, meaning that if you have 4 woks in your restaurant, before you even wash a dish, you're in the hole for 1,000,000 gallons of water. That's a substantial cost for any business. By electrifying, you're reducing that by a substantial margin, because instead of having to run water constantly to cool down that wok, you only need water to clean out that wok. And wok production, right? So 100,000 BTU wok is at around 19% efficient. It's only cooking about 124 pounds of food per hour. That's a lot of food. Now, if you look on the right, you'll see that this countertop version, much smaller footprint, plug in, you can take it anywhere you want, compatible. That can cook 117 pounds of food per hour, nearly the same amount with a fraction of the cost. Now we look at these gas versus induction range. This is the one that we're most kind of conflicted with in our minds. The gas range at 50% efficient, which by the way, I have not seen a range that efficient, but let's give it the best chance of success here. At 50% efficient, you're cooking about 38.6 pounds of food per hour. Now, I won't bore you with how long it takes you to clean a gas range or the steps, but we all know how much water, how much chemicals, and how much time it takes to do it, right? Or roughly, if you do it right, roughly around 30 minutes to break down the station. And all the while it can cause you burns or fires. On the flip side, with induction, you're talking 90+% efficient, so 70.9 pounds of food per hour. Now you're nearly doubling the amount of food that you could produce. It's going to take about 30 seconds or so to clean, so 30 minutes to 30 seconds. A huge reduction in the amount of water that it needs. You're reducing the chemicals that you need because now all you need is hot, soapy water. It's a lot safer to use. So all of a sudden you go from the traditional way, quote unquote, to do things. So now you're increasing production, decreasing the time it takes to clean, decrease the water consumption, decrease the chemicals, and decrease your staff, or rather increasing your staff's effectiveness. That's the cost that we're talking about here. And not necessarily gas versus electric, which we'll touch on in the next slide. But before we get there, I want to really help you understand what efficiency means, right? That means energy coming into the equipment versus energy that's reaching the food. So that 30,000 BTU burner at best is getting you 10,000 BTUs to your food. And that 5 kilowatt induction hob at worst is getting you 14,000, which is why we're able to cook so much more, so much faster. Go to woks, 100,000 BTUs, 20,000 BTUs are reaching your food, but that 12 kilowatt that I showed you, 35,000 BTUs are reaching your food. So for those of you who are saying, but wok, hey, if you were lucky enough to be at the convention last year where Martin Yen was doing a demonstration on an induction wok, he talked about wok hay being mimicked beautifully through induction because wok hay, according to him, is a mistranslation of the word. It doesn't mean the breath of the wok. It essentially means that you're charring your food in your pan. So if you want more char, you char more food. And we're able to get so much more power. And in fact, that wok that I showed you, we have 2 of those installed in Microsoft, and they don't go past half power. They're feeding thousands of people a day. So now some of you may be saying, yeah, but energy costs are way different, right? Costs of electricity are so much more than gas. And that's valid for some, right? But let's take a look at what that actually means. So let's assume here, and these are numbers I got from the Food Service Technology Center, 360 days a year for 15 hours a day. That's how you're operating the space. You're using $1 per therm, or about $1 per 100,000 BTUs for your gas stove. That's going to cost you $1,123 a year to operate. Same assumptions, but 17 cents per kilowatt hour. You're getting $1,114 a year to operate. Now, I wouldn't sit here with a straight face and argue that, hey, we should save $9 a year, so let's do this costly upgrade. Just saying that the way we use our energy matters. And I also would like to say that these numbers were national average numbers 5 years ago. Today, gas is $1.42 per therm, meaning that in 5 years, the cost of gas has increased by 42%, and it's not going to go down. The reason why isn't because of any policy thing. It's because the infrastructure is aging. And because of that, like any business, when you incur costs, you pass that on to your consumer. So now they're having lower yield, therefore they're raising costs. And if you look, say in California, Pacific Gas and Electric, they did a quick analysis and realized that it's cheaper to cap a gas line that is cracked or broken, for example, or leaking, and buy the entire neighborhood new appliances, meaning new furnace, new water heater, new stove, new everything, than it was to replace that one gas line. Because you have to move literal earth out of the way to fix it, let alone how to find it. That is a huge cost that they would rather buy new appliances than just replace a line. And that's happening all over the country, right? So costs are going to continue to go up no matter how much we're creating natural gas. And also electricity has gone down. 13.19 cents per kilowatt hour is now the industry average. As a matter of fact, there's only 5 states that are at 17 cents or higher, and that's Hawaii, California, New York, New Hampshire, and DC. So there's only 5 locations in the country. The rest are all below that. So let's rerun these numbers, right? Same assumptions, but now for $1.42 a therm, you're spending $1,595 a year to operate. And for the electricity, under 900. So now there's a cost disparity there by using the quote unquote traditional method. So thermal comfort. Before we understand thermal comfort, before we go into the information about thermal comfort, we have to understand it. Thermal comfort can be broken down to 3 categories: things you can't control, i.e., Mother Nature, the humidity and temperature and the air velocity outside; things that you as the building owner can control, the temperature that you set it to, and what equipment radiates what heat; and the things that you as the individual can control. What are you wearing? What are you doing? Now, ASHRAE did a study where they tested over 100 commercial kitchens in both summer and winter conditions on all different climate zones. They found that the optimal thermal comfort range was between 68 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. The only time a kitchen was really comfortable is if they were prepping or cleaning. Not when we were cooking, we were far outside that range. So much so that the New York Times in August of 2023, so feel free to look it up, they're seeing kitchens regularly hitting 130 degrees Fahrenheit. I know we've all worked in kitchens that hot, probably even hotter. But what does that do to you, right? We're seeing it becoming a real issue in our industry, and we have to change. As things are getting hotter outside, our inside is getting hotter as well. So when we think of chefs like this, right, we're cooking, there's something primal about cooking on fire. We all know that these coats are designed to keep us from catching on fire. And I don't care how many air vents you put underneath my armpit, it's still hot. And actually, if there's anyone here from California, you might know that California OSHA has passed a regulation last June that says that an indoor space, doesn't matter what it is, a kitchen, a warehouse, cannot exceed 82 to 87 degrees Fahrenheit. So with kitchens hitting 130, that's an issue. So they don't have to be this way, which I remember being in those kitchens. I remember in between rushes running to the bathroom to throw up and coming back down to it. And you don't have to, again, take my word for it. I'm sure you've all experienced it. But also Anthony Bourdain wrote about this in 2000. This is not a new conversation. We've been having this conversation for decades. But the kitchen doesn't have to be that way. We can work in a space that's better lit, that's more comfortable, that's cooler, that has better air quality. For the first time in our careers, we can do what we love and enjoy it. So here's some real world data. This is data from my own kitchen. We took this data between September 9th and 16th of 2019. The outside temperature in Gibsonia, Pennsylvania was anywhere between 85 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was the perfect summer week if you were to take a vacation. But again, between cooking, cleaning, and prepping, the kitchen never hit 74 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a near 60-degree drop. So not only can you be comfortable, but imagine what that does for your recruitment. When you go, hey, chefs, come work for me, not only is it going to be, can we match or exceed what you're being paid or have better benefits or what have you, but would you like to work in a kitchen that's half the temperature you're normally in? It's a remarkable shift to how we operate. And of course, we're underneath that threshold of that 82 to 87. So what does that, knowing all this, what does this do to the individual? So when we combust this gas, this natural gas, we are releasing things like carbon dioxide, benzene, formaldehyde, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide. Matter of fact, with benzene, there are no safe levels of benzene. And VOCs or particulate matters like soot and smoke. And you may say, yeah, but we have that big ventilation system. It's got to pass through us before it goes up. So we're getting the brunt of that. We're going to focus more on carbon monoxide because that's something that we all have a familiarity with. We all know it's called the silent killer. We all know we should have sensors in our home and work for. So carbon monoxide is an odorless and colorless toxin. Its typical outdoor concentration are anywhere from 0.03 to 2.5 parts per million. Now, federal outdoor standards says that we cannot exceed 9 parts per million. And I say outdoor because there are no current indoor air quality standards in America. And there are no regulatory agencies that have congressional authority to regulate them. So there's nothing anyone can do about it. But I'm confident that of the 9 parts per million being good science, because our partners to the north said that we cannot expose ourselves beyond an hour in more than 10 parts per million. But when we cook, we're regularly exceeding 200 parts per million in our space. Now, what does that do to us, right? Nausea, vomiting, headache, lightheadedness. Does this ring a bell to anybody? Right. These are things that we've experienced on a daily basis. I'm not saying that we're poisoning ourselves. I'm just saying, it could be heat, but I'm saying we are exposing ourselves to these toxins, complications of which permanent brain damage, cardiac damage, and even death. Now, we can't talk about every aspect of these operations, otherwise we'll be here all day. But to sum it up, by electrifying, you're reducing your idling equipment, you're reducing your building's emissions, i.e., reducing your environmental impact. You're operating more efficiently, which is saving on energy and utility costs. You're saving on water. You're having more precise cooking controls. There's a dramatic improvement in thermal comfort, extension of the life of your pots and pans, easier to clean, which is going to save you on chemical and water costs, faster throughput, which is going to save you on productivity, which is going to increase your dollar per labor hour, and it's also going to improve your indoor air quality. So let's jump into some myth busting here, because there are some things that I've heard since I started on this journey, and some of these most pervasive myths I wanted to share with you. The first, of course, is you can't produce quality food without gas. That's simply not true. We all know cooking is about fundamentals and techniques. It doesn't matter if you're cooking on a campfire or an induction range. A saute is a saute, a braise is a braise, a roast is a roast. These things aren't going to change based on fuel, right? So if you say you can't produce quality food, then say that to the Fat Duck. Say that to Noma. Say that to 165 Bistro, which is a Michelin star restaurant in San Francisco. Rosendale has an all ventless and all electric place in Atlanta. And also say that to the Culinary Olympics in Bocuse d'Or, because every international culinary competition in the world is all electric. And I'll also tell you, I put my own money where my mouth is. And last year I became the first chef in history to complete the CEC exam in an all-electric kitchen, permanently debunking the myth you can't produce quality food without gas. So what other myths are being perpetuated out there? First is induction cooking speeds are exaggerated because they can't wrap their minds around how fast this thing is. They also say sauteing is impossible on induction because once you lift up the pan, it's not connected. Therefore, it can't possibly cook. And I promise you, this is a real thing I heard that was told to me while I was on a call with Microsoft as we were designing that project. The culinary consultant said, "Chef, this is all well and good, but it doesn't work." And I had to explain to this guy that once you lift your pan off of the fire doesn't follow your pan. The pan's hot already. You saute, you put it back down. Same principles apply with induction, right? They also say you can't preheat your pans, therefore you can't saute properly. And something you can't preheat your pans that you really don't have to. We did a demonstration on the Nova documentary that we were on, where we took a pan out of the freezer, full of ice. We dumped the ice, wiped the excess water off, put cold vegetables and oil in there, and started to saute within seconds. A frozen pan to a full saute in literally 5 seconds. There is no need for preheating. They also say that gas gives you more control, and I argue that it gives you the illusion of control. I don't know any chef that looks at the flame when they're cooking. I don't need to know what the electromagnetic current is doing to know, hey, that shit's burning, right? The food tells us what to do. It always has. We don't need any outside influence to tell us, hey, that's not hot enough or that's too hot. Control the heat, don't let the heat control you. That's what we're taught. I also say induction cooking technology doesn't accommodate while cooking. I hope I permanently debunk that myth for you as well. And another one I hear a lot is that this glass is going to crack or warp. And I think that's a really good one to focus on a little bit more, because glass is an interesting conversation, right? It's an interesting definition because people think like the window pane or tempered glass, and nothing could be further from the truth. This is actually tempered ceramic glass. It's very, very strong and won't warp, right? Tempered glass, for example, will crack or warp around 600 degrees Fahrenheit. Tempered ceramic glass will not until you exceed 1,470 degrees Fahrenheit. And if any kitchen is that hot, I God bless you. And then we have a 5-year-old surface that you're looking at right there. Barely a scratch on it. In fact, you can see how clean those walls are. We're working on these in the real world as we speak. So what are the big question in people's minds? What is this going to cost me, right? What's my ROI? Quite honestly, you will see an increase in designing and building this kitchen by about 20% on average. Payback period around 18 months, right? And what's important to say is that after that, all those savings I just outlined, yours in perpetuity. Water consumption savings, energy consumption savings. When your kitchen is that hot, your refrigeration is cycling on and off, going to be cycling on and off more, right? If you're electric, it's not. If you're electric, your kitchen's not as hot, your air conditioning's not working on as often. All these savings are yours in perpetuity. And it's important to also note that the hospitality industry is an incredibly important industry economically. Here we are in Pennsylvania, we're the number 2 largest revenue generator in the state, behind only agriculture. In Colorado, in 2023, the state tourism office invested $4.8 million in advertising and building up the hospitality industry. They responded back with $1.8 billion in tax revenue. Yet, 2024, the National Restaurant Association put out a report in December of 2024 that hospitality that businesses are profiting around 3 or 4%. That's down from before the pandemic, where it was around 7%. We're squeezing our margins. We're making less and less money, yet we are incredibly important to the economic wealth of our country, of the world. In this country, we're a $1.8 trillion industry. Internationally, it's an $8 trillion industry. If you look in Barbados, for example, 17% of their GDP is hospitality before the pandemic. Now, 33% of the entire country's GDP is us. If you include the Caribbean and Central America, that's an $800 billion industry. We more than double that in this country. We are an economic powerhouse, yet we're barely making any money. And that's because we're operating in a way that is so wasteful. I wonder how many chefs here know how much water that they're spending per month, and how much chemicals they're purchasing a month, and how much all of that can be just reduced. Because chefs, we are judged by our food cost and our labor cost, because all of their costs are supposed to be fixed costs. Now we're seeing with these technologies, it's no longer the case. So I'll give you another example about cost, because this is the biggest disparity. We talk about 20%. This is the one that was the biggest disparity with the Chatham project. The demand control kitchen ventilation, and the way that works is that it works at your own pace. It adjusts based on what you're doing. And in this project, we had heat recovery, remote monitoring, and even integrated with the geothermal on site. So the way it worked is that it had these sensors that would scan the cooktops, and it would ramp up and down based on our usage. It would know if things were getting hot or not. And it also captured the heat from cooking and sent it down to the geothermal system. So as the geothermal propylene glycol was coming up at around 55 degrees Fahrenheit, our kitchen was warming it up to 70, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and then warming up the building that way. 365, we never cooled down that building. We always warmed it up. Further savings. We were able to track efficiency in real time with these panels, which you can see here. We were operating at 94% efficient. And we were able to track the usage and identify errors in real time. So the red bar is what a constant flow ventilation system that we see every day. We come in, we turn it on, and it's on all day long at 100%. That's what it would normally be. The blue bar was what our actual ventilation was. So again, this red bar is about $100,000 for that size. The blue bar for that size was $300,000. That is a 300% disparity. We were projected to pay it off in 14 months. We paid it off in 9. The campus was saving about $100,000 a quarter. Imagine what we could do as an industry with that kind of savings. Now, this is an outlier. Not every restaurant has access to geothermals, but it's just showing what the potential for savings is. So again, we talked a lot about induction because again, that's the one that's most controversial. There's so much more that we couldn't talk about. R290 refrigeration that uses propane, as a matter of fact, as a refrigerant, not to cook with, because as to cook with, you're releasing 18.8% more CO2, 230% more NOx, which is that lung irritant, and it has a global warming potential of less than 1 versus the standard right now, which is R404A, which has a global warming potential of 3,400, right? Combination ovens that have microwaves into them, they are way more efficient, get things done way quicker. We couldn't talk about that. Demand control kitchen ventilation, we just scratched the surface. There's so many different applications and how they're used and how they're put together. Ventless, meaning that you don't need that costly ductwork. You can make an electric, or you can make a kitchen anywhere you want. The Oakview Group, which is the largest owner of venues and stadiums, has said in 2021 they were no longer using gas. They were going all electric and all ventless because the cost per linear square foot to run ductwork was cost prohibitive. $2,500 per linear square foot. Now you can put a kitchen anywhere you want and move it. And if you have the dead space in your space, you could turn it into an operation space, right? Without needing the ventilation. Solid state RF ovens. These are radio frequency ovens that there are demonstrations online that you can read about where they had a red snapper and a block of ice. They cooked the snapper before ever melting the ice. Precision cooking controls that like you've never seen it. And of course, AI integration, and I put my old mentor there because he talks more about AI than anybody else. All that leads to higher performing kitchens, more profitable kitchens, kitchens that are going to refine our operations and make us more successful so we can continue being the economic powerhouse that we are. So as I close out, I just want to leave you with a few resources. The first is the decarbonization guide that we co-authored with the William J. Worthen Foundation. It is the most comprehensive guide ever written on the subject of building decarbonization. Chapter 5 specifically talks about the kitchen. It has 100% a free resource. And then my book, as Chris Tanner talked about, Understanding the Green Industrial Revolution. It is built to be, although an accompaniment for the courses and accreditations that we created, it's meant to be a field manual for the industry, where if you want to learn about induction or demand control ventilation or certification companies or what have you, you can do that. We don't spend more than 2 paragraphs on each thing because we're not trying to write a textbook here. We're trying to write something that's actually going to be impactful and be used. Also, we're launching EcoChef. EcoChef is the world's first kitchen rating system focused on decarbonizing hospitality. We're standardizing how we're designing, building, and operating commercial kitchens. We're certifying kitchens, equipment, and individuals. And we have 3 certifications coming out. The one that I think is most important to you all is EcoChef Culinarian, which is designed as a crash course of sustainable hospitality, right? What equipment is out there? How to utilize the equipment, how to manage waste, and all of these different things. And I'm proud to say it's an approved program by the ACF and will be offered as a specialized certificate really soon. So all that being said, if you have any questions, if you want to ask, if you want to follow up or have more conversation, or you just need some help or general guidance of where to go, scan this QR code. Feel free to text me, call me, email me. That's my personal number. I just want to see our industry succeed because right now we're struggling. The COVID pandemic has showed us that there's a lot of cracks, a lot of issues with our industry. And quite honestly, when you think about it, not since the time of Escoffier have we actually holistically looked at the hospitality industry and seen what we could be doing better. We always say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's broken. We need to fix it. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris for some Q&A.
That's fantastic, Chef. Thank you. So I've got a few questions over here for you.
Yes, Chef.
So my first question is, why do you think it is important to think about sustainability when it comes to your kitchen?
Why? I mean, we've always thought about sustainability. I mean, quite honestly, the farm to table movement, like that's just getting back to the norm. We have always worked with our farmers. We've always worked with a local economy. We always worked with our local purveyors. This isn't new. Sustainability is just a revert back to form, right? Globalization has taken us all over the world, and now we're increasing our costs trying to source the craziest technique and the craziest ingredient or whatnot when you have perfectly good stuff right in your backyard. Like we had Chef Russell. He was talking about Middleby. They create these technologies that I talked about in the United States. You can support American industry, right? That's part of sustainability. It's not a mandate by, I mean, it's not a trend, it's a mandate.
All right, next question. If someone would like to start the process of moving to an electric kitchen, what first step would you recommend to them?
First and foremost, I'd say talk to, well, it depends. If you are a building owner, I'd say talk to an architect, talk to an engineer, call us, and we'll find you the right people. If you are looking to have that conversation, if you're a club manager, for example, with your board, call us. We're happy to do all of this with your club board and help build that case. Uh, but what's important is that when you're designing a kitchen, the first thing you do is enter into what's called programming. So we would work with you, figure out your pain points, what you like, what you don't like, put together a design document for the architects and the designers so they can build you that kitchen. And we'll work with you to make sure you're choosing the right equipment and all this stuff. But it starts with asking the question. It starts with getting the buy-in.
Also, we got one last question. And this one's very personal, Chef.
Okay.
As the founder of Forward Dining Solutions and the co-founder of EcoChef, what was the goal you had in mind when you started these businesses?
Quite honestly, with Forward Dining Solutions, I actually never wanted to be a business owner. Funnily enough, now I have two. Uh, I actually just wanted to be a chef and I wanted to cook around the world. And what got me into this is that Microsoft called me out of nowhere in my kitchen and said, "Hey, I have a question. We're being pushed in this direction. We don't know which way to go. Um, we don't want to talk to our designers because they're obviously trying to sell us something. So we want to talk with you. What are your thoughts as someone who's just random Joe Schmo?" I told them my honest opinion, what I loved about it, what I hated about it, what I wish that these designers would have done, because it was clear that there was never a chef on the project. And I know we've all had that problem where we walk into a new space, we're like, who the hell designed this? Right. And then we had a 1 hour conversation with their chefs, with their sustainability leads, and I thought, man, that was really cool. And then a few months later, I got a call from the engineer and said, "Hey, I heard you talk to my client." And I'm like, "Sure did. How'd it go?" Really, really cool. Not every day you talk to one of the most profitable countries in the history of the world, and they go, "Well, I want to thank you because we've been trying to push them in this direction for 3 years, and 1 hour conversation with you, and they're all on board. I don't know what you did, but I think this can be a career for you." And I thought consulting is what you do when you retire, right? And then Microsoft called back and said, "Hey, we want you on the project." I said, "Cool, sign me up. What do I got to do?" They said, "Well, we can't pay you. We have to pay a company. So we would like for you to start a company." And again, Microsoft being one of the most profitable countries in the history of humanity, I said, I'd be crazy to say no. And that's what started me on the path of entrepreneurship. And then, I started full time with Forward Dining Solutions in 2021, which, as you can see, that was an awful time. But as we were building this and working on projects and meeting people, I sort of realized that, like, there's a lot of kitchens out there. I can't build all of them, and I just want to see this industry be successful. I want to see this industry grow because I see that this is no longer an if, but rather a when. And the last thing I want is for Uncle Sam to make a decision about our kitchens. And let's be honest, Uncle Sam's never picked up a saute pan. Right. So I want chefs to be leaders in this conversation. I want us to control the narrative, control the conversation, and help these folks who are writing policy do so in a way that's going to benefit us. As opposed to just right now, we're being drag kicking and screaming. It's not really working out. So that's where EcoChef comes in. We decided, hey, why don't we build what's made Forward Dining Solutions successful? Let's build out those standards. Give people here's everything that we look for and that we standardize. So now the designers are choosing the right equipment. Chefs understand how to work with these kitchens, and everyone can be more successful. Because that's at the end of the day, You're what do they say? You're only as good as your weakest link. And right now, when it comes to this conversation, the hospitality industry as a whole is pretty weak right now. So yeah, that's how it all came from.
It's funny how you said that about a lot of people retire into consulting, or even, gosh, people say retire into teaching. I started teaching in my late 20s. I was director of a program in my early 30s, and I would say that you're about the same age of that. And I say the best time actually to do consulting and some of that and being education is actually when you're a peak of your thought process, because you're able to share your passion and skills. So I think, Chef, you're in the right place at the right time, and I think you're poised to help the industry greatly. It's interesting that it just happens to be a trend at the time when you're picking it up, but
Yeah, right.
you know, we all have a certain calling, and I think you're in the right place at the right time. So, and
I
I'm
feel very
glad that
blessed.
we've actually met and gotten to know each other the last couple of years. And I think this is going to be a fitting relationship, and everyone's going to get to see you again at the conference again to talk about the conversation again too.
Yes, chef. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is a dream come true, and I'm just glad that I'm able to put something that I'm passionate about to good use. So thank you again to you and everyone else at the ACF. It's been a blast to have this conversation. And I
Yeah.
see we just got another question. Is it the same? Is it same? Was it?
Is the same true for food trucks regarding electric versus gas equipment?
That's a really good conversation. So food trucks are unique in the sense that like you can't just plug in anywhere, right? You can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to go to, Chef Tanner's brewery and plug into his electric truck or sorry, to his electric grid and then cost you all this money." So there is some interesting technologies being built right now. Has anyone heard of uh, Channing Street Copper and the Charlie Range? I say that as if people can call back. But
No,
so the
I hear
Charlie
it. I say
Range,
no. Actually, I have not
fair.
yet. So
The Charlie range is a very, but you ever hear an idea that just is so good it just pisses you off? Like that's what this was. I heard this and I was like, huh. So someone had the idea like, hey, instead of having to upgrade all of your panels and all of your energy, why don't you just say plug into a standard 110 plug, right? And just cook off a battery and have that 110 plug recharge your battery. And that's an interesting conversation to have in relation to food trucks because yes, we are using way more energy. So you're going to need a pretty big battery, but um, you're also not working 24/7. So it can be charging overnight, right? It can be
yeah,
charging when you're, when you're prepping, right? Because you're only open while the food truck is open.
yeah.
So I thought that
Most of the time, the food truck you're finishing rather than actually cooking.
exactly. So you don't. So it's a much different power need, and there are some pretty smart people working on that problem, and we've been contacted to help out with some of those conversations, and I'm hoping to continue on with those conversations. But that is something that will be like right now in Colorado, Denver. They're doing if it hasn't happened already, it will very very soon. They're doing a workshop specifically for food trucks
Yeah,
and what incentives they're trying to roll out for food trucks.
yeah.
So yeah, there are people working on it right now. It hasn't caught on nationally, but it will.
We're getting some more questions popping in, and we got time for them. So,
Yeah, let's
uh,
do it.
yeah, isn't it true induction share? So the question is statement question. Isn't it true induction shares the power with all burners that are turned on? Thus, the speed and power must be shared, and probably the speed and power will diminish.
For residential, yes. For commercial, no. So 5 kilowatts is 5 kilowatts for each individual burners.
Yeah,
You are getting all of that power and more, um, no matter what you're doing, right? So yeah, you can have a stock pot going in the back while you're sauteing in the front, you're searing this in the back. You can do all of that. So no, I mean you are using like, but then again, there are big draws, right? You have a 50 amp induction range, for example, and so because of that, you're going to be drawing all of that if you need to.
yeah. And Chef, one of the things also I'll point out to everyone, and I'll say this: if you attended the ACF National Convention last year and the ones in the past, we used to have these small little burners. You see, you buy them for $100. They don't heat up anything. They're not quality. So
No.
the kitchens that we've had Middleby custom make for us for and what you would see at most commercial kitchens are not the same things that you've been using at your catering functions or at your house even, or et cetera.
Yeah.
There's night and day difference between the wattage that goes in between those. So it's you're getting a much just completely different. So where in the past that may have been true, it's definitely not anymore. So
Yeah.
All right, we got one more. With the ventless technology available, are building codes for professional kitchens that require external ventilation due for an update?
Oh, they're always due for an update. Absolutely. So yeah, they are due for an
Most
update,
codes date back to the 70s, so probably.
right? They just keep adding on. So, but most codes do allow for ventless. Actually, I haven't found a jurisdiction that doesn't. Not saying that it doesn't, but I haven't found it. Uh, where we've applied it, absolutely you can. The reason why is because what matters is that you are venting you are venting equipment that is creating a sufficient enough of grease laden vapor that you need to get out of there, right? Now, that's what you're doing, right? Because when you're venting through these ventless technologies, it has a 4 or 5 stage filtration system, and these new ones actually have ozone, which actually turns it into ash, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it goes through all that filtration and comes out. But the difference is with ventless, you're not removing the heat. So I imagine it's going to cause issues with California specifically with that
Yeah.
Cal OSHA. But it also has built-in Ansel. So you can, and there's a kitchen here locally to us called EYV, Eat Your Veggies. Maybe you can Eat Your Veggies Hospitality. Maybe you can find a picture of their line, but the half of the like there's a combi oven at the end where half of it is underneath of the hood. And that combi has a built-in ventless piece of equipment. So you don't have to have the full canopy. You can have it down to the individual equipment if you want. And it could be pretty remarkable what you could do countertop versus full canopy versus individual. And they all have their own place. So they can set it anywhere they want in their space and turn it into a functioning
Chris, I absolutely love your passion and energy for this. It's
Thanks, man.
I sit there and think a little bit about it, but you don't have to think. It's right on the tip of your tongue. So I appreciate your energy and excitement.
Yes, chef.
Anything you want to close us out with before we wrap up?
Just the best way to support what we're doing is to call us if you have any questions or projects you want us to help you out with. The book also helps as well. We got that. I'm proud to say last year became a bestseller on Amazon. I'd love to have that pop up again. But
Cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, chef. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like I said, I want this industry to succeed. It's given me everything. It's taken me from homelessness to owning a home, and I want other people to enjoy that. And the only way we can do that is if we can make being a chef profitable.
Yeah.
So I want to see us not fight this. I want to see us work with this. I want to see us control this, and I want to see us benefit from this. So if anyone wants to work with us, feel free to reach out. Check out EcoChef, and whenever that certificate with the ACF goes live, take the course.
Yeah, we'll be there soon, Chef. So
yes, chef.
I appreciate you, Chef. Thanks so much. Thanks also for the truly insightful, inspiring session. Clearly, the kitchen's going to be electric with everything you're thinking about here. So let's keep it going. All right, everyone, before we wrap things up, a few quick notes. You'll receive a follow-up email with a short survey. Be sure to fill out and to receive your continuing education hours for attending today's webinar. Coming up next in the ACF Chef's Table webinar series, we have May 21st. Join us for Chef Tiffany Poe. She presents a thought-provoking session on AI in the culinary industry, our trending topic for May. June 11th, we're partnering with the Humane Society for Animals for a plant-based webinar to kick off June's theme, the Vegetable Renaissance. Don't forget, registration's open for the 2025 ACF National Convention in Las Vegas at the Paris Hotel. You'll hear from top industry experts, gain hands-on insights, connect with fellow chefs, and enjoy world-class food. Visit acfchefs.org and click on the events tab to sign up. On behalf of all of us at the ACF National Office, thank you again, Chef Galarza, and thank you to all of you for spending your afternoon with us. Until next time, stay sharp, stay inspired. We'll see you next time here at the Chef's Table.